Welcome back to Resident Skeptics. It is 2023. I honestly kind of thought 2022 would never end because of the election cycle. It just, it felt like so much. Going. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was a lot. But we're so happy to be back, slightly refreshed, not fully refreshed. We'll have to do a segment talking about the crazy holiday stories that we.
I was in the Southwest Airlines debacle over the holidays, so that was its own story.
It really is. But we want to take time to talk about a very important story. As you guys might have known, one of the biggest things that happened in 2022 is that Roe v. Wade was overturned. Just an incredible victory, and we were all really excited about it. One of the cases, though, that was also decided during this time was something that had to do with a football coach that decided that he wanted to have a private prayer on the field. And that ruled in his favor for free speech and right for religion. We're so happy to welcome with us here Coach Joe Kennedy, who's going to talk to us a little bit about what his experience was, all the different difficulties, the whole process. We're just going to ask him a bunch of questions. So, Coach, thank you for being here today.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. This is a big thing of the year. It's the first one. It's awesome.
Yes. Yep. So we're just going to go at this like no one has any clue. Tell us like how this happened, because you were just a coach at a high school, right? And suddenly this case makes it up to the Supreme Court. There's a lot in between there. So kind of just walk us just a little bit through how this happened.
Yeah. So everything started from just a compliment. Somebody from one of the other school districts saw what we were doing on the football field, called the principal of our high school, Bremerton High School, and gave him a compliment saying that what your football program is, what they're doing is really awesome. They witnessed what we were doing after games. And of course, with any kind of compliment, you want to have an investigation and find out what's going on. And it really just blew out of proportions really quickly. The telephone game where the principal talks to athletic director talks to the head coach talks to the other coaches, which finally gets to me. And by the time it gets to me, if I pray, I'm going to be fired. And my prayers were no big deal for 8 years. This was in my 8th football season. I usually take a knee by myself. If the team comes out, then I lift both helmets up. And I just say a couple words. God, it's awesome that what these guys did. Thank you for, letting me be part of it. The sportsmanship, the love of the game, those kind of things. Kind of a real motivational thing, but it was my prayer to God, thanking him for, what those guys just did on the field. And when this all started, like I said, the telephone game. And then by the time it got to me and they said, don't pray or else you're going to get us all in trouble. Well, of course, I had to, be a rebel a little bit and, say, this is my First Amendment. I'm allowed to pray anywhere. It doesn't matter. And I prayed after a game and the investigation started. I put one simple little...
bit of a lag there.
And it went... I never understood what viral meant until that moment, and it went across the nation. And next thing I know, the school and I are trying to figure out, how do we get out of this mess we got into? Because it's on every single news station. And from there, it just became, their lawyer said, just to make sure that we don't get into any kind of trouble, let's just remove the prayer altogether. I mean, we went through a bunch of letters of what I could do and what I couldn't do, how I was supposed to pray and all those kind of things. And it never set right with me, but I stopped praying with the team. I agreed with that. I was like, your school, your rules. I don't want anybody to think that, I'm out there trying to, convert everybody to something. And so I stopped praying with the kids, but their lawyer said, no, he's still doing it by himself. It could potentially be a lawsuit later on. And that's where the fight started. The school district lawyers got involved. It became a big hoopla. We went to the district court, to the Court of Appeals. We went to the Supreme Court, back down to the district court because we didn't have all the facts of the case. At the beginning, it was just supposed to be able to get me It was an injunction trying to get me back on the football field, while all the court stuff was going on. So that went all the way up to the Supreme Court. They kicked it back down and said we need to have all the details of the case. So what they did is we started depositions, all the investigation, got all the paperwork, went back to the district court, lost there, went to the Court of Appeals, really lost there. The guy actually told me that I wasn't even praying right. One of the judges, he said, you should pray like I do, which is really bizarre to me how a sitting judge could tell me how to pray, and yet, I don't even know. So, and then it went back to the Supreme Court and they heard the case, and in a nutshell, we rocked it and won 6-3, and that every American now has the right to be able to pray anywhere in public, at a school, at their job, anywhere in America. It's cool to do.
I like how quickly you nutshelled that. That was awesome.
Sounds like you've had a lot of 60-second take practice on that.
Oh, I've told the story a couple times, and there's so many details, and there's so much to it with my life, with my family, with the team, with the school district, everybody in my community. So it was a big deal, and just to give all the high overview is really easy to do. It's when you get down to the details of it that's where it gets real messy.
Right. Well, let's do that just a little bit, because I am curious, because again, we hear about these Supreme Court cases and something that's local becomes national, and suddenly everyone across the country has something to say about it. You talked a little bit about the community. How did they feel about it? Like, were they having the same reactions as the entire nation was, or was it just something completely different?
No, it was very much like the rest of the nation. It was almost overwhelmingly in my favor of, this is so ridiculous. You got this coach, Bremerton's not a big town, 30,000 people. Everybody knows Bremerton. It's not the best school in our, in Kitsap County. We got where all the good kids go to all the other schools, and everybody else goes to Bremerton. It's where the gangs are, all the minorities, all the poor people go to Bremerton. So the community is really tight in knowing what's going on everywhere. And everybody, I would say probably 90% of the people were on my side going, this is so dumb. This is ridiculous. If the guy wants to give a prayer of thanks afterwards, then cool. It wasn't like I was a bad coach or a bad guy. I know these guys. I went to school. I grew up there. My family's from there. My kids are going to the high school. My wife works for the school district. So the community, we're very much involved with it. And there was this huge outcry from the community. People were at the district board meetings and really just, up in arms over it, going, this is ridiculous how you could try to take somebody's rights away like that.
Yeah. And it must have been kind of weird, because if you have all of this kind of community support, but tell me if I'm right, you made it through like 7 different courts. Is that right? 7?
That is correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
7 courts. Can you tell me how you reconciled that feeling of like, okay, the community's on my side, everyone's on my side. Why aren't the courts on my side? Like, why is this not matching up? Like, how did that feel?
That was the most bizarre thing. When I first went to court, I thought it was going to be something like Law and Order, where boom, boom, everything happens, and the court, the judge hears it, rules, and the next day, everything's finished and completed. But when I was there, I was sitting in the room, and I'm sitting there with all the school people from the school district who I'm suing, which was, that in itself was absolutely bizarre. These people have been my friends and like family for almost a decade. And, here I am sitting in court fighting with them over something so dumb as somebody taking a knee for 30 seconds. So when the judge was sitting there at the district level, he sat there and he was saying all the right things. He was saying, when I played sports, I prayed with my coaches. When my dad was a coach, he prayed with his team. And I'm like, oh, slam dunk, we're going to nail this. And he says, however, due to today's climate, and it floored me. I'm sitting there going, today's climate, you're supposed to be a judge and impartial. You're not a weatherman. Don't talk about the climate to me. And it was just so bizarre that everybody thought I was doing things that had nothing to do with the case itself. The question was, does a person have a right to pray alone after a football game? They were trying to make it out where I'm pushing kids or coercing kids and just doing all these things that was never in the facts of the case. And it was hugely misrepresented. And the school district lawyers didn't do a good job of that. They kind of spun it into it and say, look, here's pictures of him still praying with his team. And it wasn't even my team. So it was real baffling to me how the courts looked at it from a different lens than what the facts of the case were. They were looking at it from kind of like a political or a I don't know, one of the side or the other of their lenses, instead of looking at it what I considered the Constitution and what the law is.
Yeah. It's just so funny that the judge said due to the climate and didn't even consider the First Amendment, like, the very basic
As if
law
that's
of the
changed.
land. Right.
Right. And when I went to the Court of Appeals, the Ninth Circuit has, I didn't know, but they take the whole entire West Coast. And I didn't know they were the most overturned, the most liberal court, and it's the biggest. The Ninth Circuit is the biggest with the most judges. And it's very left leaning. And it was very interesting to see that the lead judge that was, we had a 3-judge panel from the Ninth Circuit. And the main guy, he used to be a school district lawyer representing the school. I'm like, how is this not a conflict of interest? I mean, it came from his perspective of defending the school instead of looking at what the law is and what the facts are.
Right. And that's just what boggles my mind. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But what state are you in? Remind me.
I'm currently in Florida, down in Pensacola, Florida.
Oh,
very nice.
What a dream. But the
yeah,
school
it was
district,
80 degrees today. It was
so nice.
I'm sorry, what was that?
The school district, where you were playing football or coaching football, rather, where was that?
That's in Bremerton, Washington. If you just take a left from Seattle across the water, when you see the iconic pictures of Seattle, you see these beautiful ferry boats going across the Puget Sound. That's where they're going. They go to Bremerton.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Because I'm just kind of curious because I don't know Washington. I don't keep up with Washington. I'm going to be very honest. I don't know like if they're more a red leaning state or more of a blue
it's the left
state.
coast. It's like blue. San Francisco, LA, Oregon, Portland. Yeah, they're all crazy.
That's kind of what I thought there. But so yeah, you go through this process and Connor, just stop me if okay.
You're good. I'll let you keep going.
Connor is like he's the silent type, and then he comes out with the big question later because I just get the story going. So
yeah, he drops a bomb, boom.
No, that that is him.
That's just because my mind is slower at processing this. I've got time to go over it.
Yeah,
I'm with you, brother.
So you're going through this process. You go through 7 courts. I am kind of curious to know a little bit about kind of how this affected you as a person, how this affected your family, and how this kind of changed the bonds within your community. I know I just put 3 things into one question, so you can, do what you want with it.
Yeah, but it's very much all intertwined. Like I said earlier, the town we live in is a small town. Everybody knows each other. Everybody works at either the school district or one of the local places like the Puget Sound Naval Shipyard where I worked. So it very much was, and like I said, my kids went to the school and my wife worked for the school. So it was huge. It affected my family more than it affected me, I would have to say, because my wife, when you sue your wife and their employers, it kind of makes things in your life kind of weird.
That that is a little awkward. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, yeah. We had some intense fellowship over the years, and it was really weird for my kids because I had 2 kids in the high school at the time, and they were like, "Oh, that's my dad," I mean, they thought it was cool because we were trending. But it was really, really weird. And it did, there was, of course, people in the community that were up in arms over one thing or another. I had a bunch of people that I worked with who I thought were my friends that all of a sudden they were like, I can't believe that you would try to do this to kids. And I'm going, what are you talking about? And I lost a lot of friends over this whole thing because people never communicate anymore. They just pick one side, and they're so head down and focused that they never, open their minds or their ears, and they think they know exactly the way to, decipher things. And it was really tough on my family because it's drug on for, what is this, 9 football seasons now. So you can imagine every time it was in the news or every time we went to court, it all spun back up again. And it was these big highs and lows throughout the years that really, it takes its toll on you. I mean, I was a younger man, and I look at pictures when this all started, and I was like, holy crap, I aged a bunch since this all started. So I don't know if I was supposed to say that, but yeah, I mean, seriously, it has taken a toll, especially the first 4 years, because that's where all my guys were. They were still, I had the incoming freshman class. So I was invested in these kids for the first 4 years. After that, a lot of it faded because my guys were already graduated and off in college and with their own lives. So
Right.
things got better as time went on.
Right. And about your team, I mean, what did your team think? Like when they heard about this, like what was their reaction?
Yeah, so I didn't keep any secrets from the team whatsoever. Every day I updated them on what was going on. I was very open with the coaches and the team, and I didn't want to hide anything. We were very upfront with everything, and we were so much of a family that I felt like it was my responsibility to keep them involved. And they really wanted to. Hey, coach, we're going to protest. We're going to put our helmets down after the national anthem, and we're going to walk out the field. And I'm like, whoa, you back up. No, this is my fight. Your fight is on the football field. Mine, this is my fight here. So I talked them off the cliff, and they responded so well. I mean, they were really upset. It was a huge distraction for everybody. The kids thought it was cool because they were trending, like I said, and they were on the news. They're all clowning and hi mom and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it kind of took away from the game, which was it sucked. It really did, to have this kind of distraction going on in a time where we're trying to get to the playoffs, and we're all about the football season. I just wanted to ignore everything that was going on and let us focus on the game, and we'll work all these details off in the off season. But that's not the way it played out.
Yeah, because you said this was 9 football seasons. This whole court case went on. So nine years. I'm assuming that's 9 years.
2015, and we're going into, so there was the 2015 season, and here we're going into the 2023 season. That's way too long to drag this out.
Yeah. And the reason why I just kind of asked you, okay, what did the community think? Okay, what did the team think? What did all these people think? Like most of them seemed like they were just like, yeah, we're pretty much fine with this for the most part. We really don't care too much. But then it seemed like you had these lawyers come in and kind of imply like, hey, if this isn't taken care of, you could be sued or something like that. So I'm just trying to get a grasp of where the community actually stood, supposed to what was bringing it on that they thought that they had to make this change with you.
Yeah, and that was the thing, that it really started out as a simple question, and that's all it was. Am I allowed to do this? And we went back and forth with the lawyers. Lawyers, when they get involved, everything kind of, goes downhill from there. And the school district, they're adverse to being sued, which I understand. They're trying to protect themselves. But if by them not taking a side and waiting for the courts to decide, you had all these other groups that were coming in. We had the Satanist group come in and protested at one of the games. They showed up in their outfits, black robes, horns, a whole 9 yards.
Wow.
So
they protest for or against you?
Against me. Well, I don't know if it was really against me, because I thought that was kind of entertaining. They just wanted the same right that I had. They said, well, if he could pray, we should be able to come in and pray.
Right.
And to somewhat I could understand that, but it was more of a, one of those things to get attention and to be in the media and stuff like that, which I just wanted the media to go away and let us just do what we needed to do.
Right. Right. And when this whole thing with free speech, like are you just praying in your head, or like you're just doing your own thing?
Yeah, so the way it started, I started myself, and this was at the very beginning. I watched Facing the Giants. It's a Christian movie, football movie,
Mhm. Yeah.
and it was playing right when I was offered the job. I got offered the job on a Friday, and that movie came on over the weekend, which is a huge coincidence. And I was like, I hear you, God, you're calling me to do this, and I just like in the movie, I'm going to give you the praise after every game, win or lose, right there on the battlefield. And that's the way it started. And for about 6 months, I just prayed by myself. It was me taking a knee after you shake hands with the other team and the other coaches. And as I was walking back to the sidelines or to our bench, I would just take a knee, face the scoreboard, take a knee at midfield, thank God, and peace out. I went back along with my business. Well, about 6 months into it, I had a couple players say, Coach, what are you doing out there? And I was like, oh, I'm just thanking God for what you guys did. So they asked if they could join me. And I was like, it's a free country. You can do whatever you want to do. And so some of them came out, and then it kind of grew over the years. And depending, if we lost by 60 points, obviously a team doesn't want to hear a prayer or thanks about getting their butts kicked. Or if we won, by 60 points, they're so busy, celebrating, they didn't even think about praying. So it was hit and miss. It was never anything that was, it was never mandatory. It wasn't like something that needed to be done. It just became part of what our tradition of what we were doing. Hey, let's go join coach and listen to him. Thank God for this. And they started inviting the other team. So hit and miss. We had all the coaches either at one time or all the players at one time. And then towards the, I don't know, probably about the third year, they said, hey, can we, because it's such a small town that kids go from our school to some of the other schools. They all grow up together. They go to middle school and elementary school together. And then when high school comes, they kind of all go their own ways. And so they said, hey, can we invite some of the other players? And I'm like, man, free country, your team, you do what you want. So yeah, it went like that for into the 8th year. And then, like I said, when the school district said, just stop praying with the kids, I told them, hey, I don't want to get anybody in any more trouble. We don't need any of this stuff. So while you guys are doing the fight song, I'm just going to take a knee by myself and thank God. And that's what happened. There was nothing else to it. I wasn't still, being defiant saying, I'm going to pray with the kids no matter what the news is. That's not what happened. And it was me praying alone. And you could read all the sworn testimonies from the school district. There was never any time where I was forcing kids or putting pressure on kids. Nobody ever felt like it was something they needed to do. And it shows in the record that I stopped praying with the kids, and I was suspended mid-season and ultimately terminated because of my prayers at the 50-yard line, plain and simple. And that's what the Supreme Court actually came to and looked at that. And that's how they got to their ruling.
Right. Because I admit I didn't read all of the case because it was about 75 pages long. I was like, I don't have time for all of it.
I haven't read it. I won't read it. That's way too much legal mumbo jumbo.
It is because, you're just talking here. You're just giving very common sense, pretty logical, nothing crazy. And, this opinion, Gorsuch is a good writer. So he does a good job breaking it down, all the stuff like that. But you had most of the judges that lean right, they ruled in your favor. And then the ones that dissented was Sotomayor. Not Roberts though, but there's a couple other ones. I only know Sotomayor. She's the main one. I had a question like that was on the tip of my tongue. Yes. Okay. Here's what I was thinking as you've just been talking this entire time, is that I think that there's this odd movement that's happening in our country where they're like, hey, you can have your right to religion as long as you just keep it in your home. If you just keep it in your home and you don't bring it out there, then we're fine. But that ruins the entire point of having a religion, like not just Christianity, but other religions as well. Christians, if you're going to be a true Christian, you can't just be a Christian in your home and then not be a Christian in the public space. That's pretty common stuff. But also, again, that's the reason why I asked you, like, what kind of prayer. It's like you're just praying, with yourself. You're praying to God on your own. It's not like you're, trying to say like, hey guys, before the game, I want to take a mic and just pray over the whole stadium and do all that. You just did it on your own, and that became a problem. So I think even though this is, I guess, a small case that made it to the top, this is an overarching issue that we're seeing in this country where it's not just with praying, it's with, and I'm going into a whole thing here, Joe, so I'll stop in a second. But also in regards to what you believe about marriage. Like, hey, you can believe certain things about marriage in your home, but if you decide to bring this out into your public life and into your business, into your workplace, that's a real problem. And so that's why I think talking about this is so important, because it's coming for all of us at some point. It's not just you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with that because, I mean, could you imagine somebody saying to a Jewish person, you can't wear your yarmulke? Or, a Muslim that, wanted to pray to Mecca, or some people, they got all different, they got all these different religious things to them, the wearing the headdresses and stuff like that, or the women that cover everything. Would you ever say they can't do that out in public or at their job? Never. So why would this be any different? And my whole thing wasn't a huge, lack of better words, it wasn't a huge religious thing. It was more of the First Amendment. I was a Marine for 20 years, and the Constitution really means something to me, and people's rights. So it's interesting to have people say, well, would you feel the same way if you were, if this was a Muslim? Well, yeah. The First Amendment applies to every American, not just a few of Christians or this or that or whatever. And they can put labels all day long, but it applies to every American. And that was my big rub, and why I stayed in the fight so long, is because, I got that Marine in me that, the Constitution has to mean something, and the rights of Americans have been trodden on, and we keep giving up little bits and pieces that, before long, you can't even pray in public. Seriously? Is that what our country's coming to? Or I can't wear a cross, or, I can't wear a yarmulke? Are we really going to go there? But it seemed like that's where somebody had to make a stand, and I just happened to be the stubborn mule to do that.
Yeah, we're happy that you did. But there's another piece that we haven't talked about. We haven't really talked much about you praying itself. Like, would you call yourself a Christian? What would you consider yourself?
Wow, I've been asked that a million times, and everybody labels me as a Christian. I think God is awesome. I believe Jesus is the Son. I could go into all the things that I believe, but I don't understand the whole, Trinity thing, the 3 in 1. All that stuff is way beyond me. My thing is, God's awesome. He's the creator of everything, and no matter what you believe, just about people believe in something, whatever they want to call it. If they want to call it, Buddhism, or if they want to call it Allah or whatever, it's all comes down to the same thing. Don't be a jerk, which, is the golden rule. And, I just want to love God and love others. That's my whole thing with Christianity, or whatever people want to label me as, is that's it. I don't know the Bible well. I really don't like going to church. I like being out there and living the way that, that scriptures and that whole Bible thing says. You can read any of the books, and it's all comes down to, don't be a jerk.
I mean, pretty much. I mean, definitely, obviously, said like more complicated, but I mean, the Bible does boil down to, I say, my youth pastor told me it was 3 things: love God, love others, and make disciples. Those are the 3 things.
Oh, disciples. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that one. See, you just taught me something.
Hey, that's awesome. But Connor, what do you got?
Yeah.
I think something that I'm kind of curious about, you mentioned the telephone game at the beginning, and I'm kind of curious if you ever found out what started as a compliment. I think you said from another school or another team. How did that get translated into launching an investigation with people upset, thinking you're forcing kids? I mean, I'm assuming that's probably where it got to, But
Yeah.
did you ever were you ever able to pin down where that where such a compliment just turned into such a negative?
Yeah. So like, exactly like you said, it was a compliment. So when we did the telephone game, the principal was just concerned to make sure that we were doing the right thing. The school district has a very clear guidance on what you can and can't do. And it's so simple. It says you cannot encourage nor discourage kids in prayer.
Mm-hmm.
That's an easy one. And he wanted to make sure that we were abiding by that. So he went to the athletic director, who was the new athletic director. He was nervous that the principal's asking him questions. So to eliminate it, hey, the principal is asking questions about Kennedy's prayer because the principal said, hey, attach yourself to Kennedy's hip. I want to make sure we're doing what we're not out of balance in anything. And I want a report on what's happening. Well, who wants to report back to the principal that oh yeah, he's doing this prayer? It's so much easier to say, hey, the principal's asking about it, so just don't do it. And then when the lawyers, they're risk adverse and they said, just remove the prayer altogether, that's when things and school district kind of lost their way, I would say, from taking that standpoint of just asking the question, can he or can't he, to where the special interest group, I forget what they're called, the something of separation in church and state, this special interest group took over the case. And they were the ones that have been the driving force. They want to remove all religion from every part of the public domain. And that's where the huge rub really hit. And they went on their own tangents. They made up all their own narratives. And it's amazing to go from what, if you are bored enough to read from the very beginning, the first letter that the school district, to what they presented at the Supreme Court, they were totally 180 out from where we all started.
So am I understanding this correctly, that it seems like the school board was influenced by this special interest group to do this, and that's where the pedal to the metal kind of started?
Absolutely. It was that group that was the one that, and what is the school district going to do? Go against what their lawyers are telling them? They're going to fall in line with whatever the lawyers say. I learned so much about the school district, how they really don't stand on any leg whatsoever. They will be influenced by whoever yells the most or has the most influence over them. And the scary thing is in Washington State, the lawyer group in Washington State represents almost all of Washington. So we had all of Washington, school districts looking at this case going, oh yeah, Kennedy's a bad person for praying, and you got to remove prayer from the school. And oh yeah, he's a bad apple and stuff. And just kind of, it was really went sideways from where we all started. And it was very unfortunate. And nobody wanted to do this. The superintendent, I have the most respect for that guy. To me, he's a personal friend even to today. He went to my depositions. I went to his, and no lie, we hugged each other and was like, man, that just sucked. But like we said, we're never going to take this personal. We're trying to get an answer to the question. So we've never taken it personal. Everybody else seems to have gone crazy about it.
Yeah, that's what it seems like, because you have, it's just this small group of people was like, this is an issue, and then the rest of us are like, what issue? So that's pretty much a very, very simple way of putting it there.
Did anything change at the school as a result from their initial policy?
Oh yeah, everybody was afraid to even mention religion. That's what was really.
That's where it ended up. Then.
Yeah, that was so unfortunate that Seattle Times are way more liberal than Bremerton. Bremerton's more of a blue collar town. And it was interesting that the media plays such a huge role in it, and they basically, all the drones fall into place. And when they tell a narrative, that's what they're going to go with. So it was really, really weird to see how it took on a life of its own over something so simple, something so straightforward as. And, even when I was sitting there after the Supreme Court heard the case, I'm going, all this hoopla over somebody taking a knee for 30 seconds. I still can't wrap my brain around it.
Yeah. Because I'm like how, that's how you felt when it was revealed. You're like, well, this is great, but I wish we didn't have to do all of this, basically.
Yeah. And the personal side of me, you know, I would say the person in my flesh wanted to agree with the school district. I didn't want to fight this. I wanted to coach football. I didn't want any of this nonsense, and I definitely didn't want to fight for, you know, 9 football seasons for something so trivial as taking a knee. But it is a bigger thing that if you take one piece of the Constitution away, that's one chink in the armor that everything else falls apart. It's like the domino effect. And if you take away the First Amendment, and that's what the Gorsuch, however you say his name,
Gorsuch,
Gorsuch,
yeah,
yeah, how he's, you know, he said it that the First Amendment is to complement each other, the free exercise and you know the freedom of speech. Those are supposed to all work together, not be adverse to each other. So I understood the principle of the First Amendment, and that's very much what it means today. Is that everybody has the right to their, you know, read what the Bill of Rights say and all our amendments, all those kind of things. If we actually educate ourselves, it's amazing what people will learn instead of what they think. Like the separation of church and state. Everybody thought that that's part. I've heard that a million times.
it's not a
And I'm
part
like,
of the. It's not part of the Constitution. That was something that Thomas Jefferson wrote, I believe.
right. And it was to protect the church from the government coming in and taking it over. Amazing. So I don't know how we went from Congress shouldn't pass, you know, any laws with as far as religion goes. Well, I'm about as far away from Congress as you could probably get. I'm a high school football coach. Really?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, ridiculous to me.
Yeah, I think it's more ridiculous again. I kind of just go back to what I said in the beginning with the courts not even taking the law of the land seriously. Like they are so taken in by their own bias and what they want to be happening, and they don't actually look at the Constitution itself, which is a shame. That has to be the case. Thankfully, right now in the Supreme Court, seems like we have a, not that the right is always correct, but it seems like we have a good balance there where we can get some good cases going.
Mhm.
Yeah, and if you take a look at America, most people are moderate. We're right in the middle. You know, you have your extremes on both sides, and it seems like the courts are either so far on one side or the other, which is not what courts are supposed to be about. Like you said, they're supposed to look at the law of the land and the Constitution and those things, and rule upon that, not on political parties and all that nonsense that they're doing.
Yeah, because it's not the court of opinion. We already have a court of opinion outside of the Supreme Court and outside of the other courts of the land. We don't need any more of that.
Yeah, isn't that Facebook or Twitter or Instagram? I think it's one of
Yeah,
those.
something like that. But you kind of brought up a good point just there. Even you making that joke, like people get their information in these small little sound bites, or like little posts about things, and to a certain extent, like for example, like with articles about you, I can guarantee you that people just read
Headlines.
they read the headlines and they read probably a biased article that's not giving the full picture of the story. So they're not even doing their own research. And then they read the small little bit and they're like, I know what happened here. I know the situation. Right. And it's like, you got to stop, take a deep breath and be like, okay, let's just think about this. Let's see how this plays out. Let's look into this. If we really want to form a critical opinion.
What are the facts of the case? You know, let's take a look at that. And what an interesting thing is, people like ESPN. ESPN did the best write-up I have ever seen in my life.
Really?
I mean, it was awesome because they just told my story. Plain and simple. There was no bias. There was no opinion. They told my story.
That's real journalism, though. That's real journalism.
And it had to come from
then you had Sports Illustrated. The guy came out and spent about 2 or 3 days with us and worked on this article about, you know, my story. He worked on it for at least a month, and he wrote his first edition of it was phenomenal. And if you go back and read Sports Illustrated, it looks like it's bipolar. Once he submitted this to his editors, they were like, "There's no way you could publish it. There's no drama. There's no this." And after they butchered it, you can read it and it looks like a bipolar person. And they called me out and slammed the heck out of me right after this one part says all these good things about me. And I'm going, you know, if you want to fight, I called out Sports Illustrated on, I don't remember which network it was, but I was like, you want to call me out, Sports Illustrated? You want to fight? Meet me in the octagon. And, you know, that's the way I'm used to fighting. You know, let's face man to man and talk about this. And We need to go to blows. Let's do it. Don't sit there and write all this tax stuff on me and make up these things to make it more, more drama and more suspenseful. It's crazy.
Yeah. You have a much more passive aggressive generation, especially with social media. It's pretty easy to say whatever the heck you want. And then you don't ever have to face the person. You don't have to look them in the eye and tell them what you really think. That's why I have a rule.
Oh yeah, I had a lot of death threats, and I was like, "All right, tough guy, let's meet at Noah's Ark." I would call those people out. Let's meet. Come on, you want to come? Come to meet me. And
yeah,
yeah,
let's just talk. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a problem because I write articles for Resident Skeptics, and when I write anything that I write, I will say straight to your face with no problems, and that helps me evaluate what I'm writing and say, would I actually say this out loud? It's a little harsh, but yeah, I probably would, and that's okay. But anyway, we kind of digressed a little bit, Connor.
Yeah, Connor.
I kind of been having a thought, and I'm not totally sure how to phrase it, but I'll try to make my way through it. You mentioned as people continue to gather in on your prayer sessions and join you, free of their will and their choice. You kept making the statement, it's a free country. When the lawyers came in and just said you should just do away with prayer by yourself as a group, all of it together, and it gets to the point where the school doesn't want to discuss religion. Did it ever feel like the country is not as free as he thought it once was?
Oh, absolutely. That's why it was so mind-boggling to me that this was something that needed to go to court, because something so trivial as that, and you're really going to is this worth suing somebody over a 30-second prayer? This is America, the land of the free, the home of the brave, all those things that you grow up and you hear. And I'm sitting there thinking, what a bunch of crap. That's so not true. Take a look at, you can't even talk about genders anymore. You can't, we're so political that it's just absolutely ridiculous. And I'm like, I don't buy into any of that nonsense. I had to put my stake in the ground right there on the 50-yard line and said, you shall not pass. That's the way it came down to, where we were at we couldn't talk anymore. We couldn't. The school district, they gave me a letter, the school district lawyer, that said I was to have no more contact with the school district unless it went through the lawyers. That shut down all communication before even the lawsuit started. And I'm going, how can you talk as adults and educate our youth if you can't even have a conversation among adults as the leaders of the school district? It's sad, but that's where we are as a society. So I felt very much, and I still feel good about standing where I stood and taking this all the way to the end, because if you don't, who's going to do it? I mean, I'm not the only guy that's annoyed with what's going on. And you guys, I don't know if you listen to your podcast, you guys have, some pretty good statements inside there. You have your positions. Well, it seems like we're the only ones doing anything about it. Where's the rest of America standing up for themselves and standing up for what's right instead of what's popular or in the news or any of the buzzwords or anything going on? Sorry, I'm digressing.
No, we want you to talk. We're all about that.
He got me all, way to go, Connor. You got me all spun up now.
I told you he has the bombs. It's just the psh, and there it is. But kind of like half answering the question that was kind of rhetorical. It's like, why won't people stand up? It's because they're so dang scared. They're so dang scared of a group that's about this big. Because I think that you're correct, is that most people are pretty moderate all around. Like, for example, this is very off topic, but when it comes to abortion, there's a people that are on the really far, we want to kill them 9 months, and then obviously have very strong pro-life that are like in conception. Connor and I have our opinions on that, but if you poll Americans, most of them are pretty moderate. But they're like, that 9 months, that's crazy. That's insane. Now, I don't think the middle position is, amazing, but it shows that there's much more moderation to the American people than we would be led to believe by all the news articles, by the super left-wing publications, and people in Congress. And obviously, our celebrities who are in the most left-winged, the most left-winged area possible, trying to
Where
represent.
do they live? I want to know where these people get their ideas from, because it's not the real world. I don't understand them. Sorry, but
No,
yeah,
I
they're
feel
crazy.
you. I get
Crazy.
what you're saying. No, it's crazy stuff. Like Jennifer Lawrence being like, yeah, I was the first person they ever made as a female lead. I don't know if you ever heard that, but she did make that claim very recently. But they're not in touch with reality, and so
Yeah.
you have people that are not in touch with reality trying to
Yeah,
decide
Robert De
reality.
Niro.
Go ahead. Oh,
I said Robert De Niro.
oh, I was like, I thought you were gonna say so. I thought you were just like doing a little quick cough there, but yeah, you have people that are not in touch with the reality, trying to make reality for normal people that don't live in that kind of world, which is crazy, you know, because California will eventually break off from America, like literally, and then, you know, they'll be just float away to China or something. I'm not sure.
Well, we're this baby country, you know. Everybody else has been through this. Name anywhere. You know, you look at the Soviet Union. That was huge. Who was going to break up the USSR? And guess what happened? That was like the United States. It was huge. Rome fell. Everybody goes through this growing pain, and that's where America's at right now. In my personal opinion, is that we've lost our way and we forgot what we're so bored that we have to make up new stuff. And people don't think about anything for themselves. If, you know, Jennifer Lawrence says this, or Robert De Niro says that, or Tom Hanks, you pick anybody. If they say it, that's what people believe, instead of having a mind of their own. It's this weird group thought, and people forgot how to use their own brains and communicate.
Yeah. No, and I think you're right. And I think it's cool that, again, I think you did the right thing with your players. Like, if they have that choice, if they want to pray with you or not, they have to make that choice. They have to critically think that through and decide if that's something that they want. And they did. Some of them did, some of them didn't, you know, and that's what happened.
And to put a pin on that is, I had a couple of kids. People always ask me, what if somebody didn't want to pray? Well, I had two specific guys that I remember that came up and said, Coach, I don't believe in prayer. I don't want to be part of it. And I was like, cool, what do you want to do? And they said, well, I'll take care of the equipment, and anybody else is struggling around or whatever, if anybody else doesn't want to do it. I made both of those my team captains because they showed leadership. So this whole thing that the school district at the very end said, oh yeah, he was, if the kids felt, you know, pressured because if they didn't pray, they didn't get a play. And I'm going, where the heck did you get that idea? That is so, I'm like the JV head coach. I'm just an assistant coach for the varsity. I don't do starting lineups. I don't say who gets to play. And on JV, guess what? Everybody plays. Every single person. They don't all get trophies, but everybody competes. So yeah, I don't know where they get their ideas from, and all these buzzwords that they use and phrases. It's annoying.
Yeah. No, it sounds like it. You don't even give them a participation trophy, Coach? No participation trophy?
No. If they don't put out effort, I am all over their butts. I expect the most every single time out of them. We had a time where one of our team just gave up on the football field, and it was obvious they gave up, and all the coaches were sitting there going, what do we do? And I said, if they want to give up, let them. Let's not go back out there and coach them. And oh my gosh, that year, very next year, with that group of guys, they figured it all out, and we won the championship the next year.
Nice.
Because they you know, that we need tough love sometimes. It's not all the time, but discipline is something that I definitely demanded from my football team at all times. We would have fun, but yeah, no, there's rules to everything, and no participation trophies. Nope. Get off my team if you want to do it. Go play tennis.
I was actually listening to a comedy stand-up about how this guy was basically saying that tennis is like the most weird like sport that there is because of the way they do their points and stuff. But anywho, I did.
It is odd.
It is like super odd. It's like the first points you get is like 15 points 15, for the first two, 15, and then if you make a third, then that's only 10 points.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
15, 30, 40, 45. Yeah. I don't know who does math there.
And I think it's match point after that.
Yeah. There is something I wanted to ask you though. There's two things. The first thing I want to ask, kind of just to wrap up this portion, is So you won the Supreme Court case. Yay, woohoo! What did you get out of it? Like, what did you want from them by suing?
My job.
So there's no money, nothing.
Oh, no, I don't get a dime. Only thing I asked for was my job back. I wanted to be a coach, and I wanted to have the right to be able to pray after a game. That was
Those
it.
are the only no money for legal fees, nothing.
Oh, well, I mean, my lawyers, they'll probably get legal fees because they won, but I don't see a dime of that. I'm not getting paid anything. I didn't care about money. It was the principle of it. I might not have all the morals and everything else and, always follow the rules, but I have principles. And that was one of them I had to stand by, that this had nothing to do with money. This had to do with nothing else except for those two things. I wanted to be able to be a coach and have my First Amendment rights to be able to thank God afterwards. That was it.
Wow. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna interject on your other question, so you'll have to hold on to it. But as you were going through the process of getting to the Supreme Court, were you still able to coach, or did you have to step out of that completely?
Yeah, so they suspended me halfway through the season in the 2015 season. So I attended every game for probably first couple of years. But every game that season I attended, I had to sit in the stands and watch my team play. And at the end of the year, we get it's just rolled over. The coaches, we sit down and we get our evaluations and say, do you want to coach again next year? And they say yes or no. And there's a box on there that says, I want to return coaching. And then there's another box that says, do you want this person to coach again? Well, at the end of the year, they said, do not, they wrote me bad on everything. They said, yeah, he was this, he was that, and, marked me down on my evaluation. It says, checked on there that says, do not, we don't want this guy back. And then on the big bold at the bottom of it says, do not rehire. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but that is a death sentence to anybody. If you know anything about a job, and we never reapplied or anything. We just got rolled over year after year. And the only thing that changed between, the previous year, the 7th year and the 8th year was the prayer thing that became this big hoopla. But I never changed any of my practices. And I was rated highest in all of these things and all the contributions I did to the team. And it was so weird to see all these things that I've been marked down for that I didn't change. It was still me, still doing the same thing that I've done from day one. So yeah, I was removed from the team. I couldn't participate. I couldn't interact with the team in a professional way. I still stayed in contact with all of them. We were on social media. We'd meet after games. On weekends we'd go. I'd take them out to lunch or whatever. I was very much involved with them for the first couple of years while I still had guys there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you never got to return to the school then?
No. And that's what I just won the right to. The Supreme Court ruled that they have to give me my job back. And we're still working out the final details. We go into mediation at the end of this month. So that pay attention to that.
Okay. But now you live in Florida, right?
Yeah. I'm going back on January 30th to start my paperwork and finish up the mediation, talk to the coaches, talk to the school district, and start all the paperwork process of getting rehired and really feeling it out and find out what's next. But I have my plan and the school's plan, as far as I know, is I will be on the sideline for the 2023 season.
Okay. How's that feeling coming up to being able to work there again? Is it still a lot of the same people as when you left, or have they rotated out?
Every time I'm back home and all our families in Bremerton, so it's not like I'm all the way across the country without ever going back. My kids live there, so we got 4 kids now living in Washington. Who else is there? All my wife's family, except for her dad. That's why we're in Florida. My parents live there. All my foster families are there. All my friends, everybody is in Bremerton. So we go quite often back there. And, I attend football games. So I just saw this last season, we were getting ready to go to the playoffs, and I wanted to attend a couple of the games. And I went to the game, and we sat there, we watched a football game, and I looked out there. I didn't recognize a single kid. I saw a couple last names from, they must have been in grade school when, so they were the little brothers of some of the guys that I coached,
Right.
which is really weird. And there was 3 coaches, I think, that were still there when I was there. So mostly it's been a huge turnover, a new head coach, whole new coaching staff. So it's really weird. And I have a lot of anxiety about going back, mostly due to the fact of, what am I going back to? Where am I going to be? I don't know where I would feel if somebody said, hey, you have to hire this coach back and into this program that's already established. And there's going to be media crap, which I didn't want to start with. And now I'm going to be bringing that back into back to the school district. So there's a lot of workout. I have a lot of anxiety over that. I've been praying nonstop and trying to figure out how that's all going to play out. But I have faith that, God's going to work everything out exactly the way that it should. And whatever happens in 2023 season, I'm going to do. I didn't give up this fight for a reason. So there's something else out there for me.
That's awesome.
Still got your question?
I do, because I think I have to ask it, because it's more of a little bit more of a culture question. But I kind of, as you were talking and kind of leading up to this podcast, about the football player that Buffalo Bills, DeMar Hamlin. He ended up collapsing on the field. Obviously just really shocking. And there's kind of this picture of their entire team is on the field and they're all praying. And I thought about that, and then we were having this conversation with you, and I was like, how do you feel about that? Like I don't know if you've thought about it a ton, but I just want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, no, that's, if you look at my social media, tons of people tag me in that. And I think it was a beautiful moment, and it's really sad. It's like when the Twin Towers happened, on 9/11, the country came together, and you heard it from the president, and you need to pray for our country. You need to pray for this. And it was so awesome. And yeah, it makes my hair stand up just to think about that. Unfortunately, it came to this young kid, having a heart attack on the football field to wake everybody up. But it was so amazing that everybody just instantly turned on the switch, and it was, it's cool. It's all right to pray. And no matter who you're praying to, we want the best wishes for this guy. And we were concerned as a nation, a whole nation over one football player. That is awesome to me. But it's unfortunate that it had to come from something that was really bad. But it just shows that God is very much alive and well, and that America is very much in tune with that side of the country, so that, God is still very much part of it. And I loved it. I loved every single thing about that everybody felt it wasn't as a protest. It was all in unison for the same thing. That was awesome.
Yeah, I thought so too. And I know there was even an anchor that was on, I think it was on ESPN, that he also just started praying. And it just
don't make
tells
me
us,
talk about that. I got emotional over that. And I'm not an emotional guy. I'm a Marine. I'm a football coach. I'm a tough guy. Don't get me started on that, because that hit me hard. That was awesome. Awesome.
I mean, you're always welcome to talk about it. We're not trying to cut you off short or anything, but I just thought it was really cool. And, it does tell us something about the heart that we have as human beings, is that when something horrible happens, we do ultimately believe there's something higher than us. That immediately makes us think we can't control the situation, so let's pray, right?
Yeah.
And I do wish that we would, kind of like you said, we wouldn't do it just when, a young man has fallen, which thankfully he just got released from the hospital, which is great news. But that we would do it every day, that we'd call on God every day. And that would be
that's what I do. That's what most of my prayers was just giving thanks. Now in the evening, I ask for forgiveness and all the other stuff.
The necessary things.
Yeah. But every single time I prayed with my football team or just alone on the football field, it was exactly the same thing of being thankful. And I am so thankful for, we're such a spoiled nation for everything that we have. And I've been blessed beyond any measure, more than I ever should have. And it's just so awesome that, that God is still very much part of my life, and I will always give him credit. So it's not about me. It's about something, like you said, something bigger than myself. And I give him props every chance I get. And I'm just thinking and believing that America's going to be like, yeah, it's okay to pray. It's actually kind of cool. It might be trending now. I mean,
The newest,
it's
I
all
would like
right.
that to be the newest TikTok trend is prayer. I don't think that'll happen, but I'm hoping that would be.
Hey, you might have just lit the fuse for that. You never know.
Maybe. I
Crazier
mean,
things have happened in America. Obviously, look at the
you are
news. You can see.
you are not wrong about that in any way. Connor, any closing thoughts?
No, I think I got my closing thoughts out. I was curious how he
Sweet.
felt going back into it, and I mean, the only other thing I could ask about is really just the court process of getting to the Supreme Court. I imagine you guys had to appeal quite a bit
Yeah,
going up
and that's
there.
what it was appeal after appeal, and it's not just filling out one form. You got to write all of these things, and that was one of the cool things about it is how many people was. They write these things called amicus briefs, which I didn't know what they were,
I have no
and
idea what those are.
I've heard the
yeah,
term only a
it's
few
a friend of
times.
the court. So people will write in like a group, or we had, I think it was 30 plus senators across the nation. I don't remember how many attorney generals, but all these people, a whole bunch of NFL players, Kirk Cousin. Gosh, I wish I had my list. There was just so many people that wrote in friends of the court to say their thoughts on this, on it. And I, it was so amazing. I don't know how many exactly we had amicus briefs, but it was probably probably close to the most in history for any court case, which is
Wow.
so cool to see how many people were writing in these amicus briefs. And it was, all that paperwork was so crazy to do, and to wait for so long because you appeal, and then they got to vote on it. They got to have their own little meetings and stuff. And the Supreme Court, there were 60,000 that get submitted every year to the Supreme Court, and they took, I think, 60 this past year. That your odds are not good. And they took my case twice, which I should play the lottery, because the odds of that happening is just astronomical, it's ridiculous. You can't tell me that if you don't believe in God, prove me wrong. Take him on and prove it, Don't take me on, take him on. And yeah.
Wow.
That's a good challenge.
Yeah, because I guess to me, I was just like, oh, it made it to the Supreme Court, but 60,000, and you said they take like maybe 60 a year.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's insane.
And they took it twice. And not only did they take it twice, because they looked at it the first time, even though they didn't want to hear it at that time, they wrote a bunch of stuff saying that we're very concerned about what they wrote. You need to answer these following questions.
Mm-hmm.
When does the Supreme Court ever give you a roadmap on how to get back? And they were looking for it to come back, and they took it.
Yeah.
They
were.
Yeah, amazing. And how big this case was, and what the implications. So there's this thing called the lemon test. I don't even know if you guys are familiar with it.
It sounds really familiar.
Yeah. So, you learn so much weird stuff when you're going through the court system. So there was this case, like Roe versus Wade. There was this lemon versus somebody or something. And it was back in the 1950s. It was even before Roe versus Wade. And that's where this whole thing of the reasonable observer, and what really set I don't know how they measure if somebody is doing something right or wrong as far as religious things go. And it's been the biggest burden. It's been this huge noose around every single case. It falls back to the reasonable observer and the lemon test. Well, because of our case, my case, it has removed the lemon, which is going to overturn all these things, like the taking down of the 10 Commandments out of places, and all these statues and all these other things. All of that, could come right back up. And that's my challenge to everybody is, where did the 10 Commandments go? If anything religious was ever up in your communities, go tell them you want to have them put it back up, and you could state this case. So this freed up America. This is more, as my lawyer said it, which sounds weird to me, that we are more free religiously as a country than any of us have in the past 70 years. That blows my mind. Since 1950s, nobody's had this much religious freedom in America. That's sad and weird at the same time.
Yeah. I don't know what to say to that. That's
that it's taken this long.
Yeah. And well, you take a look at it, and everybody thinks, well, of course you can't pray at a school. Where did you get that from? It's been built into us, and everybody assumes that's the way it is, the separation of church and state. Well, isn't that a law? Isn't that part of the Constitution? Nope, it's not. And people just, that's why this case was so cool, that it forget about me as far as a high school football coach. This freed up all Americans. That it doesn't matter what job you have, where you work, or anything. Everybody has the right to pray and exercise their rights as Americans. That's cool. That's an awesome thing.
Yeah, I think the craziest part about all of that is that the court system, or what they were trying to do to you, and what the school system and the lawyers were initially trying to tell to you, is that you couldn't think certain thoughts.
Yeah,
that's what those prayers are. If they are to yourself,
No,
they are thoughts. They are kept to, between you and God. Nobody else can read them, hear them, touch them, or see them. And it's just insane to me to think that they were going to try and legislate laws and rules around what thoughts you're allowed to think.
And the funny thing is the school district, even though they lost, I would say the lawyers lost, but the case, I won the case, so means that I did nothing wrong. I was right, and you have the right to be able to do this. Now the school district is saying, it's so weird that they are still dragging, well, their lawyers are still dragging their feet and saying, well, he could pray briefly after the game, and as long as nobody's around within 20 yards. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? This is what got you into this in the first place. What are you doing? And you want to strangle them, because it's like, I don't want to go through this again, but you're doing the same mistakes. And it's all their lawyers. Those guys drive me nuts.
Next time, just let the Satanist group take it to the Supreme Court.
When they showed up, it was funny. I had all these cameras in my face, and they were like, what do you think of that? I was like, let them in. They could come and sit by me, but they have to stop by. So they have to pay to get in. So that money goes to our booster clubs and for our sports program, and buy a hot dog, because that money goes to it too. So yeah, please, I don't care. More people show up to the game. I'm down for that. Sit by me. I don't care if you want to dress like a whatever demon or whatever. I don't.
Nope.
You do you, and I will do me. We'll be fine.
As long as they buy a hot dog, they can do
they
as long as they
or
buy a
nachos.
They're
Nachos are pretty good. Yeah, it's all good as long as you spend a little money for our program. We're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the funny part, is that you did this because you're labeled as a Christian and you were praying to God. But I mean, honestly, it really did come down to anybody that wants to express whatever religion they are, including Satanists, whether they're old or new school types. But it really is just anybody, and it is the freedom to think the thoughts that you wanted to. So I mean, I think even people that are anti-Christian can at least be glad that your case went to the Supreme Court and you won.
Yeah, and no matter. Yeah, exactly. And no matter what, if you believe or you don't believe, you have the freedom to do that. And I would like to say thank you to all those people who think that way. Yeah, you are allowed to do it as an American. So we're cool.
Love it.
Yeah, no, I love it. Jordan, anything else? Any other thoughts?
No, I think that's it. I think we covered a good amount of ground in a pretty short amount of time. So, but I don't know if you have a website, but where can people find you if they want to learn more about your story and what happened?
Yeah, it's pretty tough. CoachJoeKennedy.com.
Super tough, but I think we can make it
work. Yeah. Super simple. And it's got links to my Facebook pages and all that kind of stuff. And I have people that, hit me up on Messenger all the time. And I'm very much open to talking to anybody. I'm not going to be one of those guys hiding in Hollywood, keeping, my head in the clouds. I'm very much me and the average Joe. So yeah,
No
come and
pun
check it out.
intended.
And yeah, exactly. So come and check it out and ask the questions. If you're for me or against me, it doesn't matter. Yeah,
Mm.
uh,
And
build your
we love to
knowledge
hear
on this
that.
and read it.
Yeah, we love
It's
to hear that,
awesome.
especially on Resident Skeptics, because we are about critically thinking things through as we can.
Mhm.
Of course, I can't end the episode without just thanking you for your service as well. We also
thank
really
you so
do
much.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure. Very much so.
Awesome. So you guys, that's Coach Kennedy for you. We have more guests coming, more exciting stuff. So make sure you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I guess Rumble. No, we don't use Rumble.
They're there.
They're there. But you can check us out over there. In the meantime, stay skeptical, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks.